You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
She's alive! Alive!
I am Dracula.
Welcome to Monster Manor. This has been a while coming. We know we have talked to many of you guys about the plans for this show, and up until now, it's been kind of a mystery as to what it was going to be. So this is Monster Manor. It's a show dedicated to monsters, classic and neoclassic, to all of the people behind the monsters, which, yes, I'm going to be taking advantage of some of my friends and bringing them into this madness, hopefully without too much of a struggle. So, first and foremost, thank you for being here. This is the best, absolute best birthday present I could have, is to be doing this show and have all you guys here visiting with us in the Manor. Second of all, I definitely would have to mention our sponsor, of course, Pache Airbrush. They help us out in the studio all the time, and this is yet another extension of that, and you'll see why in a little while. But this show, being number one, I had to have on a friend of mine who I absolutely adore. He's a fellow monster kid, and we met on a little event called Gillibration, if you guys remember hearing about that. And he came in like Superman to save the day with helping with a lot of the publicity and getting us nice ad slicks. And we became fast friends. So please allow me to introduce my good friend, James-Michael Roddy.
Hey! Happy
Hello,
birthday!
how are you doing?
I'm great. Happy birthday. I am so honored to be spending some time with you on your birthday and also be your first guest. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here, man. You were fantastic at Gillibration with both the presentation for Monsterkids, the panel interviews, and everything. We absolutely adore you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making it special.
Sure.
And tolerating the blues with the first episodes. They're always so hard, but having you here makes it a little bit easier as well.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, let's have some fun.
That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
Monsters and fun. So, I know that, when you first got involved with the Gillibration, I was amazed at, first of all, that I recognized your name, and I knew, where did I hear that before? So could you tell the watchers here some of the other things that you were involved in that I absolutely know that they're going to recognize?
Oh, sure. I would love to. I have been so lucky in my career thus far to be associated with a lot of the things that we all love so much. I used to be in the concept and creative department for Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando for several years, where I worked on a lot of the mazes and the content and the characters and the live shows. And then I moved on to Disney, where I did a lot of stuff with Star Wars and Pixar and Marvel. I was very lucky with that. Also did Halloween on the cruise ship, which was a first for me, called Halloween on the High Seas, where I was able to create a live show that was an homage and a tribute to Ray Bradbury's The Halloween Tree, which was very important to me. And then along the way, I love horror movies. I love movies in general, but obviously horror movies, especially the classics. And one of my favorite movies of all time, hands down, is Jaws. I think it's a perfect movie. And so it's a movie I saw when I was really, really young, and it connected for me through a book called The Jaws Log, that somebody made movies. It was the first time that, I discovered the Jaws Log and Famous Monsters around the same time. And it hit me that all these things that were just creations that you watched, somebody made those, and that was a career. And that set me on a course to kind of like, this is how I want to be involved in this in some capacity. So
Right.
That being said, I had the opportunity to do an event up on Martha's Vineyard celebrating the 30th anniversary of Jaws, and turn that into a documentary with some friends of mine called The Shark is Still Working, which is officially now part of the Jaws canon as far as it's officially licensed by Universal. It was on the Blu-ray release, and it just got re-released on the 4K UHD. I also helped a guy by the name of Rob Cometti, who's very, 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 very awesome young man, who he was producing a documentary on the Psycho legacy, and I came on board and helped him get that across the finish line a little bit. And then I put together a documentary, which you've seen, that is a tribute and a look at all of us, the monster kids, the ones that were bitten by this radioactive bug that, gave us just this love of things that go bump in the night. And, through my career, I've been able to become friends with a lot of the creature creators and horror creators. And so that allowed me access to, they all came on board, and I'm very proud of it. It's won a couple of awards, still looking for a home for it. So if anybody wants to license it and put it out there, I would love it. But no, I get to show it at special events and things like that. And it was a perfect home. You allowed me to show it at Gillibration, which is where we really met. And it was such a great event. You guys, I know you were crazy because you were building a full size creature suit that you were putting, I believe, your father-in-law in.
Yep.
And it was like your first big event like that. And I just came in, I appreciate the kind words. I just saw something that I wanted to go to. And I was like, how can I help you? Because I've done stuff like this before. And what can I take off your plate? And I think one of my favorite memories is just actually helping fix the lights for Rico Browning's photo op.
Yes.
And then just, David Scull was there again, and it was just a wonderful time. And I hope we're going to talk about the revenge of, or, Gillibration walks among us, whatever you're going to end up calling it, because it is something that monster lovers need to find out about and be a part of.
Yes, and we do hope, just to allay people's fears, we do hope that 2021 opens up a few more doors, that things kind of settle down economically and with the pandemic, and we can definitely consider that, because nothing would please me more than to have the bookends. We had the 1954, and if we could wrap things up with The Creature Walks Among Us, we would love to do that.
Well, you got me. Whatever you need from me, I'm on the list, brother.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And I could tell that from the beginning. You had that Monsterkids heart. Where did that start for you? What was your first memory or first inkling of, these are amazing characters, amazing stories. I need to be a part of this. Where did that start for you?
I grew up in, I was born in South Carolina, but my father was a truck driver. So we moved around pretty good amount. And we ended up, around that time I saw Jaws, and I was really starting to get into, I'd always loved classic monsters. First time I saw the image of Frankenstein, I think it's just something that, I don't know, you just see it and you respond to it. And
it's striking.
Well, it is. It's frightening, but it's also intriguing. It's like, it's human, but it's not. And how was it put together? And what do the bolts mean? And things like, So I know that I was aware of Frankenstein and the classic monsters. Also, my mom, God rest her, was someone that really just allowed me to have self-expression and love things. She never put a damper on any of that. She was someone that loved movies as well. Mm-hmm. And so, she would always tell me about these things that she thought I would like. And I remember it was kind of this 1-2 punch. I got my first issue of Famous Monsters. There was a horror host in Tampa on channel 44, WTOG, is that right? Out of Tampa, called Dr. Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
And he was so much fun, and just really was a gateway to make these things that were frightening for a child not as frightening. That it's okay to laugh at things you fear. It's okay to be scared. It's kind of a fun thing to be scared. And so I saw that. I had my first issue of Famous Monsters, which I want to say was issue 100, maybe. It had Frankenstein on the cover, as I remember it. And that might have been issue, I think it was 75 or 100. I'm not sure. And all of those things kind of came together. And I will tell you, as a little kid, my favorite, I loved them all, but my favorite was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So much so that I have memories of going to first grade, kindergarten into first grade and things like that, where we would have show and tell, or where you can stand up and talk about things and bring in things to show. And I would do skits based on Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, where I acted out, the whole kind of stuttering that Lou Costello as the chick, and all of that. And, I remember getting people responding to it, which made me go, oh, people love that. I'm not the only one that loves this. Other people love it. So how can I continue to create things based on this that people love as well? But that,
right.
I all of those memories, that Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein probably is the one that I loved the most. I loved Creature from the Black Lagoon. I loved The Wolfman. The only ones I didn't like, I loved all of them. The only one I wasn't crazy about was the original Mummy. And I didn't like, I watched the Mummies, and when they came on, there's like, I think 5 or 6 of them. When you get to, Tom Tyler and then Lon Chaney Jr. But when I finally saw the original Mummy, I was so disappointed, because as a little kid, it was like, where's the Mummy? Where's the Mummy? And I had seen the other ones before that. Yeah. But definitely Frankenstein and the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Wolfman were my favorites, and Dracula.
Absolutely. They're like the 4 kings of the Universal monsterdom. And it's funny when you look at the history of classic Universal monsters, we all can identify with that, but how close it was for those not to be even made, with the changeover of ownership at his 21st birthday. All of a sudden, Carl Laemmle Jr. has a new studio and is going to possibly take it into a new direction, or at least certain projects. Do you think that had he not picked that brave choice of Dracula, a literary classic, which was already kind of in hot water because of Nosferatu not getting licensing, so here he comes back and says, we're going to get licensing, we're going to get the Bram Stoker seal of approval on this, and the rest was history.
Right. It's fascinating that you bring that up, because, again, some of these things that have lasted the ages almost weren't made. Jaws was almost canceled. There's so many things like that you hear, and you're like, how is that possible? And I think it really boils down to that Laemmle Jr. knew how to, that there was something that would connect to audiences at that time. You think 1931, what was happening in the country, the fact that he liked the idea of Dracula, but didn't really use the source material. Like it's got pieces and parts of the original Bram Stoker's novel, but Bela Lugosi, he saw Bela Lugosi, I think, in a production somewhere, and that story that was kind of the theatrical version is really what made him kind of say, I think this is viable. Right. And you also kind of think where his head is at that point too, because you have to remember, he didn't discount that movie as something that was like a creep show for Halloween. That movie came out on Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, right?
And again, I always love watching these movies, and especially if I find one that I haven't seen or haven't seen in a long time, is kind of going back and knowing the history of it. So what was going on with audiences, so you can kind of put yourself in a mindset. And if you think about that, you hear the stories, we've read them, where people were fainting and women were fainting and things like that. Dracula is a scary movie, and Bela Lugosi, that performance, because if you look at his entire career, Bela Lugosi had a lot of misses. He was a good actor, but he had a lot of misses. But that one role really defined the character up until this day. Good or bad, nobody can play that role without at least thinking about what Bela Lugosi did. Right. I think it's interesting too that but also how again, they almost canceled it. Right? They didn't want to do it. He to do it.
Well, they lost their intended lead.
Right.
That was
it was originally a vehicle for Lon Chaney. Which, again, you think, what if? I wonder what he would have done. Would it have been more of the London after midnight look, or how because Chaney was not a restrained performer coming out of the silent era, whereas Bela Lugosi, that film creaked, and just, and then you follow that up the same time, Christmas that year, December that year, here comes what is the epitome of the universal classic monster for me, which is Frankenstein.
Yes.
They got it right with Dracula, but then Frankenstein said, well, if you thought Gothic horror was on display in February, wait till you see this. And that 1-2 punch that year just made Universal. I mean,
yes. And a totally different choice for directors too. A totally different direction from Todd Browning,
James Whale. Yeah. So, again, it's funny because Todd Browning obviously is a fantastic director. He actually directed a film I can't watch anymore, which is Freaks. Freaks is so disturbing to me. But what is interesting, and not to take away anything from Todd Browning, but then at the same time they were filming the Spanish version of Dracula. And if you watch that, they were filming it on an exact opposite schedule. And the performer playing Dracula is a little over the top, but the cinematography is gorgeous.
Yes.
And almost you almost wish they had combined and let that cinematography kind of frame what Bela was doing. But again, it's still classic.
Oh yeah, you almost have to watch them back to back. They're so different and so the same at the same time. Yeah. But I'm a big fan of both versions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then also the thing that's very interesting to me is, and I'm sure the Monsterkids would agree, is when you watch Dracula, even today, it's like the absence of sound makes it even scarier. There is no soundtrack. There's Swan Lake at the beginning, but just there's kind of that absence of sound that makes it a little more supernatural, if I will. And I always wondered, like, they shouldn't do a soundtrack, and then they did with Philip Glass, which it's interesting that they made that decision during that time to, whether it was financial or not, would be fascinating to find out. But that movie really does set a tone for what Gothic horror became. Then followed by Frankenstein, which just cemented it.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with Frankenstein. Other than an opening score, there was no score to that.
Right.
That all changed, of course, with The Mummy and mostly Bride of Frankenstein. They got very flamboyant with that one.
Right.
But
Bride of Frankenstein is one of the best scores of all time.
oh
You know,
yeah,
and it just it's so beautiful and so haunting and so melancholy, you
oh
know,
yeah.
that it really echoes. It really does echo what's happening with the monster.
Well, yeah. I mean, the emotion in the shack was amazing.
Yeah,
Then you go to the opposite end of that with the bride when they reveal the bride of Frankenstein, and they have the bells. You know,
yeah,
they almost make it into a bride's.
yeah, like
Uh,
a wedding march. Sure.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Very
Yeah.
bold choice for a monster movie, though.
Well, and you also think about James Whale. I think at that point he had a little bit more of his sensibilities. Yeah, I think they trusted him a little bit more. Like
Right,
Frankenstein is pretty much straightforward, a horror film, but then
right.
Bride, there's quite a bit of kind of social commentary in that. There's a little bit of camp in that.
Yeah,
Like when Pretorius has the small miniature people, which I still to this day don't understand.
yeah. That was a little out there, wasn't it?
Right, but you're like, it's in the confines of that. It's like Bride of Frankenstein, I would say, is more of a fantasy film than it is a horror film.
hmm Yeah, it definitely had
Design is
that.
beautiful. The design, oh my gosh. And, I mean, Karloff was on record in his later years about having the monster speak and how he may not have wanted to do that and things like that. But again, all of those things now are still prevalent. When you think of Frankenstein, you think of him saying fire, bad, and all of that, I mean, 70 years on, right? Hey, wait,
Yeah,
no, 90 years on. What am I thinking?
yeah. And considering that Frankenstein itself is only a little over 200 years old, the original story.
Right,
Wow.
right. But I mean, taking
But,
that original source material and then being able to visualize it the way they did,
right.
Rick Fadden's sets and the cinematography again, and just the fact that both Browning and Whale were artists at heart. So
hmm
every frame of that film, it's filled with just great architecture and emotion.
Oh, absolutely. And despite those monsters, um, Lemley's reign at Universal was very short lived from what I've read. Um,
Yeah.
it ended like what, 36, 37? So
Yeah,
you
if I'm not mistaken, it was the musical Showboat. They did a version of Showboat that was so expensive and was,
mhm,
it was that kind of thing. Like now you think about films like Heaven's Gate or Ishtar or Cleopatra. These things that the the studio was like, this is absolutely going to be, a huge hit, and
yeah.
it wasn't, and it really, I think that was the end of Lemley's reign, which is unfortunate.
But his monsters, his idea of bringing in these gothic horror characters went on for at least until the 50s and beyond.
Oh, sure. Well, and in fact, it's ironic to me that even today, they still are trying to capture that lightning in a bottle, if you will.
Right.
The fact that they did come back to that well. So anytime the company seemed to like have a lull or have a bad year, they're like, let's do another one of those. So you
Yeah.
had,
The re-releases and the
absolutely.
sequels.
Well, sure. I mean, then you had Son of Frankenstein, you had
Right.
Dracula's Daughter, you had the series of mummy films, then you had Ghost of Frankenstein, and I think the big resurgence really happened with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, because then that launched into, let's combine these characters. So
Yeah.
you had Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, then House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein,
hmm
and even throughout the later years, like in the 70s, the fact that they redid Dracula, which is an amazing film. The John Badham version with Frank Langella, I think, is
Oh
really,
yeah.
again, with an amazing score by John Williams. And then even recently, the fact that they tried with Van Helsing, they tried with The Mummy. Mummy was popular and is a fine adventure film, but they still haven't captured the essence of what I think we all love about the classic horror films, right? It's like
Right.
they don't trust just the material. It's like, we have to make this the biggest thing ever. And even with trying to do the franchise recently with Dark Universe, and that kind of went away. Although I will say, I thought Invisible Man was a step in the right direction, because they took the idea and kept it true to that. They didn't try to expand and make it more than it needed to be. And I think it'll be interesting to see. I hear, not Ryan Reynolds, the other Ryan that was in La La Land. I hear he's doing Wolfman.
Gosling.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling is going to do a version of Wolfman, and that sounds great to me. And every so often you see something pop up. This person is trying to put together a new Bride of Frankenstein or a new Van Helsing or what have you. So, those characters, Universal keeps going back to them, and I think that's very telling. That at least they recognize that somehow those films connected in the Wayback Machine, and they're still beloved today. I mean, we keep buying versions of them when they come out on Blu-ray and with special features. And, the one that they released a few years ago where it was Dracula, where it was restored.
Yeah.
New film. It was so gorgeous.
Yeah. 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 The Frank Langella one, I think, just had two versions that were out there, the theatrical release, as well as a director's flair that kind of changed the color tone. There's beautiful stuff that they're doing with these newer movies. Dracula Untold always comes up in our family. I'd love to talk with you after we do Boris's week in review. I would love to talk to you more about where the legacy of the Universal monsters might be going, especially with the theme park talk about Epic Universe and Dark Universe. That seems to be up in the air with all of these rumors of remakes and reboots and everything. So it's a great segue, but we do have to introduce Boris into the mix here. And I think you'll like him. He's a very interesting fellow. He has a unique take on things. So when we come back from Boris's review, remind me, we're going to talk a little bit more about the legacy of the monsters and where that might be going into the next few years.
Great.
Stick with us. Stick with us, and we'll be right back after Boris's little intro here.
All right.
You are on, Boris.
What?
You are on.
You do now? Can you do Boris? Breathe a little bit softer. It's been a long weekend for Boris. Master have a long party.
Not feeling well.
No, he's not feel good. Not feel great, but Boris gonna power through. What doing again? Oh, what
the list.
The review. Yeah, Boris. Everybody in Facebook land. Hello, this is Boris, and Boris's review of the week. The Boris choose Memorable Man, Ed D. Wood Jr. The book is called Nightmare of Ecstasy: The Life and Art of Edward D. Wood Jr. It's by Rudolph Gray. It came out in mid-90s, so you may have hard time finding it. But it's very good read if you do find it. Actually, it came out the same time as the Ed Wood movie by the Burton dude. But this is much better. This cover Ed Wood from Baby in Poughkeepsie, New York, down to his enlistment. Actually, fun fact, Ed Wood listed in Marines during World War II, won Silver Star with the cluster, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart. He also was in what's called G3. It's a counter spy. And he called out spies towards the end of the war, actually going around with ice capades. Then he come back and make films. He make films such as, nobody know these, like Plan 9 from Outer Space, Bride of the Monster, other ones like The Sinister Urge. But Ed Wood was master at one take. He did the way this is showing one take. He take one take. Oh, there's Glenda. Yes, that was called originally. I changed my sex, but what he did was he changed into almost biopic about him and his struggle with transvestism. As the book, and Ed Wood would say he was not gay. He just liked dressing up in women's clothing, mostly Angora. There's picture Bella and Tor Johnson, a real. They're Glenda. They keep listening. Boris under the sheets. Stop switching the picture.
There's a little bit of a delay, Boris. We know.
Okay. So anyway, the book is not written as a typical book. It actually has anthology of everybody that knew him, from wife to co-workers to people that acted for him to just friends in later life. And actually have Tor Johnson in here and Valda Hansen, who was known as Vampira, who was actually first horror film host show lady, who would later go on to sue Elvira for stealing her book. But it's not a thick book. It's a good read. Nightmare Ecstasy, The Art and Life and Art of Edward D. Wood Jr. Probably get on Amazon or Barnes and Noble is finding. And it was really good read. Boris has had this since the mid-90s. Got it for a Christmas present, and we read it almost once every couple of years. Okay, is he done now? Can we go back to party?
We just got the list to cover, Boris.
List. What do you mean list? Oh, that crappy piece of paper you handed?
Yes.
Okay,
the other items that are out in the world of Monster.
Boris got to shield for Monster Manor now. Okay. Let's see. We got Mondo Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's a 12-inch figure, and that's called MondoShop.com. It ships February 2024. Scott in the Monster Man, the creature probably look good then with the Mondo Shop. NECA, we had to put NECA in here, right? NECA Universal Monster Remco has, the Loot Crate? What's a Loot Crate? Anyway, it's a subscription. You make a subscription to Loot Crate, and you get Universal Monsters from them. And then we got Stephen King. The Funko Pops, those are the little one with the dead eyes. Booksamillion.com, and you get, I think it's just Stephen King. Hopefully it's just the good Stephen King, not the one where he writing, what was that one with the Maximum Overdrive? Yeah. Dracula AD 1931 by, what's his name? Matthew Cunningham. He sent us a PDF Boris is going to read and will actually review in the future. Thank you, sir, for your generous sending of the book. But if you want to read early, you buy the book from where? Amazon and Hemlock Books. What else? We got Mark Spears has a Kickstarter, where you give money and he make the monster cards. Well, apparently the Kickstarter is funded, but you can never give too much money to monster cards, right? Maybe you get something cool, and they do. Why keep banging into this thing? Spencer, you need a bigger set. Where are we at now? They're going to make a reboot with little-known actors, Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson. If you know Chris Evans, he did that one-off Captain America role, and she did that one-off Black Widow. Boris never watched the movie. You probably never saw them either. And Clive Barker got Hellraiser rights back. Good for him. It says Hell with one L, Mr. Spellcheck. And they're going to do a Van Helsing reboot. Now, maybe it's old man, maybe it's new man. If you like the Jackman, Wolverine, Van Helsing, that was good. Boris, slept through a movie, but it was all right. James Wan going to take that. And then we got, here we go. In Parsippany, New Jersey. Jersey? Well, we know Boris not going to judge. He lived in Bellevue. April 23rd to the 25th, Chiller Theater going to do shows. And you can get tickets at chillertheater.com with the www with the dot. Or you just type in Chiller Theater. Boris got computer from 1995 still on AOL disk. And now we got the birthdays this month. Really? Boris have to do birthdays? Is he like Willard Scott from Today's Show? All right, on the 17th, we got 3 people. The immortal Betty White, who gains quickening when any other celebrity die. She's actually 1923, and she's older than sliced bread. It's true, look it up. Brian Hegland, he done Nightmare 4, The Dream Warriors, and a bunch of movies, and The Knight's Tale, where Heath Ledger fought people with sticks. And the third one is actor Dennis O'Hare. He done True Blood and American Horror Story. So everybody on the 17th, you got to go to their sites and say happy birthday. Here's a gift card to, Applebee's or something. Are we done now? Boris gonna pee. He does. He drank too much tea. And he went over there where you talk to Mr. Big Shot and can't make no noise.
You're broken from New Year's, aren't you?
I am broken from New Year's. Never, they say beer before liquor is quicker than that. Boris drink nothing but whatever the master leave out in jars. We play, what's this do? And we pretty much drink out the jar. We lost 3 people. We buried them in the back, said they never come, hide the car. But Boris play what this do before he come here. Drink out the vial, and something is not right. But Boris hungover, apologies. He will not be hungover in, was it 2 weeks? Hopefully in 2 weeks. He'll remember to come back, but come back 2 weeks. See the fence to maker here talking with his peoples. He never mentioned you. Did he mention Boris the first 30 minutes? He's Boris come to your little tricky tricks and then go away. That's he gonna find out. He gonna get you. Hello, Mrs. Lady Fenster. She behind the camera, but she don't want to say nothing. So Boris is gonna go. Oh. Maybe you'll know what happened next week so Boris don't fall out the chair. And, preview what comes. Boris never pay attention. He watched too.
So, welcome.
I'm going! The check may not bounce.
We hope not.
I hope not.
Welcome back to Monster Manor, again with special guest James-Michael Roddy. We hope you enjoyed that little, very irreverent look at what's coming out in Monsterdom and different books, maybe a retro review or two. We hope you enjoyed that.
Yes, very much so. I hope everyone else did too. I think Boris... I see a lot of potential in Boris. I hope he survives. I hope he survives next New Year's, because it seems like it may have done something to him. He seemed like he was loose.
A little bit. So, but we would rather have some Boris than no Boris at all. And he needed a little bit of the hair of the dog, but I think he's going to pull through. Good.
Perfect.
So when last we were talking about the lasting legacy of the Universal monsters and those that were born in the 30s. So what is your take on the Dark Universe, and what do you think is the next step with that?
When I heard the rumors come out, and then you kind of, especially with Epic Universe, which was Universal's new park, everyone kind of, I think, held their breath, because it looked like, okay, we're finally going to get the immersive land that we've always hoped for.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, up until that point, and I was at Universal for several years, and it really was hard to convince people in higher positions how relevant the monsters still were. My last Halloween Horror Nights, we were lucky enough to do work with Rick Baker, and we put together a maze based on the Wolfman, the reboot that they did a few years ago.
Mm.
And one of the things that myself and the rest of the team decided, we're all huge fans of classic horror. We said, okay, well, we have the Wolfman. We're also going to do a Dracula and Frankenstein. And, what our take on it is, as far as keeping it a sequel to those original films, but how would they be not rebooted, but how would they be updated? Right.
Right.
And, they were very, very scary. And I think proved to a large crowd above us that it was, okay, these characters are scary, because whether you agree in 2020 that the image of Frankenstein has been diluted because, things like the Munsters and ads and kids' costumes and what have you, the idea of the Frankenstein monster is ghoulish. So I was really excited. Unfortunately, I think that Universal has put on hold their new theme park for a while we all deal with what's going on in the world. But, I think Dark Universe, I was excited at first about Dark Universe, even though it seemed like everybody was just trying to jump on the Marvel bandwagon and do a cinematic universe.
Right.
It seemed like they had attracted enough people that, like, wow, these are some of the best in the business.
Right.
Really heavy hitters. And the Mummy was not, I don't know why there's such a hate for the Mummy, other than people just, I don't know. They just didn't. Maybe Tom Cruise was too big of a star to be in that film, right? Like, and maybe those films do need to be more with unknowns or lesser actors, not actors but stars, right? Case in point, Invisible Man. I thought Elizabeth Moss is a great actress, but she's not a huge movie star where she brings baggage. So you really were able to appreciate that film.
She's quiet famous. Quiet famous. She's done, what was it, The Handmaid's Tale. She's phenomenal in that.
Sure. And she was phenomenal in Invisible Man. Whereas you look at something like the Wolfman reboot, which, again, I didn't think it was a terrible movie. I thought it had some good in it. I mean, I thought there were some really good moments. But you put Anthony Hopkins and Benicio del Toro, who bring so much baggage with them, right?
Yeah.
I really think, personally, if I were king of the forest, I would look at bringing in talent that, Boris Karloff, no one knew who he was. So, he became a star after the fact. Bela Lugosi, no one really knew who he was.
Right. All the best monsters were kind of unknowns. Even when you look at, Robert Englund in the Nightmare on Elm Street, nobody knew who he was really, except for his work in V. He wasn't like a household name, but it's actors like that, like the Boris Karloff and even Lon Chaney Jr. He wasn't really well known except for Of Mice and Men back in the day. Right.
And so again, I wouldn't say he was a star. He became a star because he was the Wolfman. Then he did horror for the most of the end of his
breakout monster stars.
Yeah, so and Robert Englund's a good example. I think that might be a way to go, is just maybe even looking at, okay, let's make these films with some filmmakers that have a passion for the story. Let's find some new actors or unknown actors that don't carry baggage with them. And then hopefully, if like Invisible Man was a hit. So I think, now from the business mind, it's like, okay, let's roll out some other movies.
Yeah.
They keep that foundation, because then I think we will get a classic monster experience, immersive experience in the future. That'll be what we all want. I mean, we all want to walk by the windmill. We all want to walk into Castle Frankenstein and see the lab. We want to walk into the graveyard. We want to walk in Carfax Abbey, the basement area, and see the coffins and the bride. And You know,
Maybe a Jungle Cruise type of thing. That would be awesome for the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
sure, of course, where you know, you actually combine animatronics and live actors and special effects, and you know, yeah, because I don't think it's going to serve anybody to have the creature walking around in you know the park. It's interesting because years ago they tried to do a camp thing with the Creature from the Black Lagoon in theme parks called Creature from the Black Lagoon the musical.
Yeah.
And so and again, I remember hearing that and going, I love the Creature so much, but I was like, well, you know, Little Shop worked because they were true to a style. But Creature just didn't, because I think it didn't know what style it wanted to be. It was too much of the kitchen sink but you know, I think Shape of Water is a good tip of the hat to Creature, although I still want Creature, just the underwater photography and the unknown, and you know, the fact that you are in his world. You know, again, back to the movies that I love, like Jaws. To me, Creature is very much in the same vein, where just being itself, and we're invading. Like, we go in the ocean. If we don't go in the ocean, we don't get eaten by a shark.
Right. You can't fault him for nature.
Right. And I think Creature, that element is what makes him so scary, is that he is the master of his domain, right? He knows that he's lived there, and we're visiting, and you know, the pretentiousness of human nature to go, well, I'm human, I should be able to go in here. I should
always. Right. To conquer.
Yeah.
We actually had that conversation here in the shop, and around the time we were doing the Suit for Gilibration, because we're like, this is such an echo message if you think about it. It's green filmmaking to its highest order, and here we are, you know, literally 65 years later, and we're still having the same issue of people just going in where they don't belong, marking it as their own, destroying. I mean, it was kind of weird watching the movie and seeing that they're just chopping into rocks and stuff like that, and destroying history, and I mean, this is the story that's told over and over and over again. But you know,
I think you're right. At like that take on a remake of Creature with the right effects, right? Again, like, it can't. I don't want it to be CGI. It needs to be whether it's Doug Jones in a suit or whomever in just an amazing suit. You know, I also think we're due for like some of the films we didn't get to talk about, that in Universal and all the other studios, that then the nature runs amok films, that, you know, Them, the praying mantis, the mantis, or deadly mantis, and I think all of those are all right for, especially with what really has happened in the last year. It'll be interesting to see how many of if Hollywood goes back to that mind again, to say, let's use these monsters to tell to give a little social commentary, but at the same time, I mean, really scare people.
Yeah, I mean, at their core, at their perfection, that's what it should be. It should be provocative of thoughts in what we're going through now. And I think with the Creature, yes, with Wolfman and Frankenstein, there was always the message there. You know, with Frankenstein, it was, you're playing God. You're going where you shouldn't go. Dracula, that's quite obvious, but it's still, you know, I think it's lost on a lot of people because they just look at them as very surface films, that they're just monster movies in black and white nonetheless. But, you know, they still have a very good message. In fact, Creature had one of the most profound endings, because not only did they go and rape this creature of its natural environment, but then they stripped that of him, so he was more human. They tried to make him. It always rubbed me the wrong way, even as a kid. I couldn't believe what they did with the Creature. But
you know, it's interesting too, because doing a lot of research on Jaws. There are shots. Obviously, Spielberg was influenced by Creature from the Black Lagoon, even to the fact the way the film ends. There's the excitement of we survived and we defeated the dragon, right? But then, like Brody, after the shark blows up, and then also that shot of Julie Adams and Dicehart where they're standing, or not Richard. Oh, what's his name? Oh my gosh,
Carlson.
Richard Carlton. What's wrong with me? Where they're standing there at the grotto, and you see him sink down dead. It's like those movies with a little bit of sadness. Like, what did we do, and was it really worth it? Like, they realized, like, we just killed something that didn't really do anything to us.
Yeah, and I think he got it. That was the thing, but it was lost on a lot of people. The messages were very deep if you looked for them. I hope that we can actually get back to the core of that, and Dark Universe looks in another direction. Like we were saying, less popular stars for more acting, better acting. Because again, if you have this megastar, they're all the attention. They're taking the attention away from the message in the movie. So I wish them luck with it. And I really do hope that we can get, the epic universe off the ground, because again, it's about exposure. My kids, they know about classic monsters. They watch it. They live it. Yeah. And it's not so bad if you get into it.
No, not at all. They're great stories. They're great stories. And they were done by artists like yourself that, like your work. I mean, there's a part of me, let's just do one. Like, let's just Kickstarter one and see if people, all the monster kids out there who want this kind of content, let's just make something low budget and enjoy it, right? I mean, what is the next creature? What is the next creation that resonates and for the kids that are watching today? Because I know, like your kids and my kids, we obviously gave them a pretty healthy education. We didn't force it on them, but they were like, wow, you're passionate about this. Let me see what's up. And then it translated. And I know lots of younger folks that have a love for those characters. And that's what, when I did the Monsterkids documentary, one of the last questions I asked everyone is, in 100 years from now, are we going to be talking about Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolfman? And I think it was Tom Savini who said, we're still talking about Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we talk about their great stories? They're our mythology, so
yes.
So I'm excited. I just think, and maybe the positive of this pandemic, if there is one, is that there's such a need for content, and there's such a need for kind of a reevaluation of how much money is spent and things like that on content, that maybe there is room for some young filmmakers and some young voices or new voices to just kind of create some stuff that people will talk about and really dig.
I'm a firm believer that that's going to happen, because if you watch the ebb and flow of history with something like this, people get tired of hearing the pandemic word. So, for lack of a better word, the New Kids on the Block reunion tour. But I got that from a friend of ours, and yes.
That's
so the reunion tour. When you have something like that, or the Great Depression, or the World War, there is always something that comes out of that, and usually it's an envelope of movies. So I really do hope that that we can do that. We do have something kind of fun that we want to try with this show, though, and I was wondering if you would be interested in playing along with us for a little bit.
Sure.
This is where I get to play the James Lipton a little bit and find out what makes my friend Michael Roddy tick. So let's go back in time in the
All right.
Wayback Machine to a 6-year-old little Roddy.
Mm-hmm.
What were you watching on television when you were eating your breakfast pancakes or your Fruity Pebbles? What were you watching? What was your favorite cartoon when you were 6 years old?
I have vivid memories. It wasn't. I mean, Saturday mornings were usually cartoons. I was lucky enough that every morning before I went to school, I would sit down and have breakfast, and my mom usually made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch the 1966 Batman series.
Oh, that's awesome.
And those memories, I love that show. I love it today. The colors, the humor, it was just wonderful. You know, that and Three Stooges and Little Rascals were the
Mhm.
two. That was the hour before I needed to leave for school. Were those, and you know, it really kind of tells you a little bit about my comic sensibilities.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. But that's what this interview is about too. This part of the interview is to find out what makes you tick in a very non-traditional way.
Sure, love it.
So here's a classic argument: toilet paper, over or under?
Over, easily.
Over, definitely.
Yeah.
No exceptions,
under
right?
Ridiculous. Under just tears, and it's ridiculous. And yeah.
Yes. Okay, I can get behind that.
You
How
know,
about your all-time favorite song or your favorite chorus from any song?
my favorite song has been and always will be "Let It Be" by the Beatles.
Oh wow.
That is my meditation, if you will. I just kind of that there are things in this world that you can control and you can't, and the things that you can't,
Mm-hmm.
let it be. Just let it be. It'll all come
So-
out in the end. It'll all work out.
Here's a related question to that then. You mentioned that, and I absolutely agree with you. That's one of my favorite all-time, that and Imagine. But did you see Across the Universe? Being a film lover, I'm sure you have.
Of course, yeah.
That version, didn't it give you goosebumps when you heard
Oh.
that version of Let It Be?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, not to go on a tangent, but my daughter recently discovered Elton John through Rocket Man. And I like Elton John a lot, but I watched Rocket Man, and there's a version that they do at the end of I'm Still Standing that is the equivalent of Let It Be In. And that version, I'm Still Standing, now has become my mantra for occasionally.
Yeah.
But I always, beer was my go-to, but I'm ultimately a product of a truck driver. So, you know, I think it was in my DNA, unfortunately.
I gotcha. And what's your favorite word and your least favorite word?
My favorite word of lately is contribution. That's my favorite word.
Fair enough. A lot of people have missed that, huh?
Yeah, my least favorite word is no.
Mm.
I don't
I like you more and more. You know that, right?
Well, just no. I don't. Yeah, it just ends, right? It doesn't give you anywhere to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its use, obviously. I just don't like. That's my least favorite word. I just don't like it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely got its finality to it. And last question I would ask you in this series is, what do you want to be when you grow up?
That's a great question. I want to create. I don't care how. I just always want to create. I've had a great run and did some great. I had great opportunities and did some great stuff. And but that chapter is now closed, and I'm looking for. You know, that's what I did with the book with Haunter's Tale and Haunter's Tale 2 is just find ways to create and not be reliant on anyone or anything. You don't have to be to create. So that really is what I want. Just to keep on creating. That's it.
Yeah. Well, let's create stuff together. We definitely have to do that. Keep this alive. Would you consider coming back and talking with us maybe later in the season another time?
All you have to do is ask. I am at your beck and call. This has been a joy.
Wonderful, because we would like to talk more about Haunter's Tale, because it's an absolutely wonderful 1 and 2 that are out, and it's a great set. So I would like, and we just ran out of time, but I would like to hit you up on that again. And
we can talk about anything. I will be your standing guest. I'll be your pinch hitter. I'll be, if you ever need anything, just call and I'll be there.
I thank you, my friend. Absolutely, you'll always be on our speed dial.
Thanks, man. This has been lovely. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely be back in touch with you. And to all of our viewers that have joined us, we are coming to an end of a very quick hour. I still can't believe that it has gone so fast, considering that we've had such a build-up for this. But we even have more stuff coming. This is the amazing thing. We already told you we have David J. Scull coming in 2 weeks. He's going to be our guest talking about his new book for I think it was Turner Classics. Is that what it was? I'll have to double check that. I'm drawing a blank, but absolutely amazing and phenomenal guy. And collect all your questions now, because he will be on. He's eager to talk monsters. He's a big monster kid just like us. We had him at Gillibration last year, and his knowledge and depth in the what makes monsters tick amazes me. And he is a multiple-time published author. He has also been on documentaries on the monster DVDs several times. So David J. Scull is coming up next Monster Manor in 2 weeks. Then after that, we have our season 9 a wonderful reunion with my other family. We spent how many weeks together? 8 weeks together until the end of that show, and we got quite close. And even Jason met him there, and he was best man at my wedding. So shows you the what we had going there. Yes, yeah. Sorry, some behind the scenes stuff going on, but yeah, we have that coming up as well, and you're going to get to see everyone, all of the contestants that were on Face Off. You will get to see again and see where they're at in their lives now. We also have a couple that I can't really talk about yet, but when they hit, it's going to be a big thing. But please watch the website or the Facebook page, Monster Manor 1313. Continue to share, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much for joining us on the first episode. All my thanks to you. See you next time.